The year was 1999. World Championship Wrestling was battling the World Wrestling Federation in what will go down in history as the Monday Night War. At a macro level, the same thing could be said about each brand's respective action figure lines. While the real WCW got a jolt of electricity in 1996 once it introduced the New World Order, its action figures, then made by original San Francisco toy makers, failed to resonate in the same way. They were bulky, cartoonish, and lacked the effort that was being put into WWF's action figure line produced by Jakks Pacific. OSFTM proved to be further unable to grasp what people wanted in late 90s action figures when they introduced taller, vibrating wrestlers. Who asked for these? Actually, I think I did for Christmas, and it was the most disconcerting Christmas of all time. The point being, WCW figures felt outdated and irrelevant, but unbeknownst to us, a WCW figure revolution was about to begin that exceeded our wildest expectations and now made WWF's bone-crunching line seem antiquated. Exit OSFTM, enter Toybiz and WCW Smash and Slam wrestlers. Smash and Slam was Toybiz's first foray into wrestling figures. Pro wrestling was white hot in the late 90s, and as such, retailers were very willing to provide copious amounts of shelf space for both WWF and WCW merchandise, along with OSFTM's newest acquisition of ECW. The very first set launched with 8 figures, and shortly thereafter waves of Goldberg alone, bringing the total to 9 figures for the inaugural series. But that's not nearly all. Smash and Slam was notorious for including multiple variants of almost every star in the set. That often meant the splintered faction of NWO Wight versus NWO Red could be represented immediately in the first series. With the internet wrestling figure community in its infancy on sites like FigureZone and AFR, you didn't always know what was coming out when, so going to the store was often rewarded with a new version of your favorite superstar that you never knew about. It was an exciting time to be a young fan. Because of the nature of Smash and Slam's roster and importance at the time, this video will focus mainly on that set and its variants. Additionally, there were 2-packs and rings and other things related to the first series, so that will be covered as well. Well, let's take a thorough look at WCW Smash and Slam. What you're looking at here comes from collector The Meaty Bat. These are pieces of concept art used to convey what the WCW Toybiz figures were going to look like before they were produced. You can see the action features were already in place, though the actual drawings differ slightly from the final product. Notably, Madness T-Shirt Savage, the Wolfpack click hand gesture, and whatever it is Kevin Nash is doing here. Here's another drawing of what apparently was dubbed WCW Bashers. They look very close to the final product of Smash and Slam, though Luger is in tights, which would come much later in the line in the main event 2-pack series. Sting has his jacket and Stinger Splash action, DDP has the infamous Diamond Cutter pose with the guardrail, and the Giant even has the chokehold with small jobber included. Not quite Rey Mysterio, but close enough. This final piece of concept art looks to be the finalized versions of what we actually saw released at retail. Still incorrectly titled Smash and Bash, these must have been done shortly before production. Hall has some minor differences in tights, along with the WWF's trademark Razor's Edge in his move description, but otherwise, this is the most complete evolution of how Smash and Slam came to be. Sting, specifically Wolfpack Sting in red, was being promoted heavily to launch the new line. An early prototype seen here was even featured on Toy Fair's magazine cover. This is the final version released to retail, complete with Stinger Splash action. Notably, the head is different, and the attire has been updated with the scorpion designs on the side, with an NWO logo on the center of his chest. F-Damage on WF forums took this excellent close-up of the prototype head. Sting comes with his signature baseball bat and fox leather trench coat. For roughly $6 in 1999, this is quite a deal from the $19.99 we usually pay now. Ringside Collectibles actually had an exclusive of this attire released in 2016, So if you're feeling nostalgic and collect modern figures, here's your answer to that. Wolfpack Sting wasn't the only version of Sting in this line. The classic crow look with the white scorpion in the center of the attire was also included. Toybiz went on to produce several white and black Stings, so it doesn't seem as special as the Wolfpack figure. Strangely though, it is by far the hardest to find of the two. I happen to own this one both loose and on card. He has the same accessories as Wolfpack Sting and even features the same red and black photo on the packaging. Mattel also produced a modern version of the same attire based on Starrcade 1997 in their Defining Moments line. It's one of their absolute best works. Another figure with two notable variants. Survey says, Chico, it's Scott Hall. Scott, seen here, has the white blood drip attire, and he comes with a white Sting mask and a crudely carved NWO table. This figure can perform the outsider's edge by squeezing his legs together. The figure blew away collectors at the time. He has an excellent likeness in the face, right down to the stubble and his little curly hair on top, and the chest hair detail was something that rarely got included in figures at the time. It is a perfect depiction of the bad guy himself. But if NWO white and black isn't your style, they also made a variant in his red and black Wolfpack colors. Ironically, the red and black attire came before the white and black attire in real life, but let's not get into time frame conjecture. Red and black Scott Hall has the same accessories as the white version. Disappointingly, the Sting mask is still white and not red. Would have been a nice touch. Toybiz re-released this figure with black boots instead of red in a 2-pack with Kevin Nash later in the line. Speaking of Kev, here's the first of many figures Toybiz made for Kevin Nash. The most common version has Kevin with standard brown hair, an NWO logo, and simulated leather pants with insanely exaggerated fringe. Squeeze the legs together and he performs the jackknife. The pants have a bluish dry brush effect that give it the illusion of shine. The coolest thing about this figure is that it comes with a light blue shirted referee from WCW. This was released at a time where referee figures were extremely uncommon, and while Jakks had their generic ref in their ringside collection line, it was difficult to track down. Trust me. There exists a few slight variations of this Nash, most notably the one with bleached looking textured hair, black fringe, and the word Nash in place of the NWO logo on his singlet. Another with standard hair, and the Nash logo was a bit more common. It's amazing how many slight variations exist in this one series alone. The total package Lex Luger is a bit of a puzzling figure. He fits in with the all-star lineup of the first run talent Toybiz chose to represent WCW/NWO, but the attire, was it based off this? Luger wore tights even while in the Wolfpack, so it seems a tad odd to wait until the near end of the line to introduce a proper Lex Luger. Nevertheless, here he is in black pants with a pretty cool police barricade. You have to remember at the time, backstage brawls were super in with the world of professional wrestling, so the accessory was a fun addition to an otherwise bland figure. However, there exists a variant of Lex that is even more lackluster than this one. Say hello to painted on makeshift NWO Wolfpack Lex Luger. Just what? Why a poorly drawn NWO logo? And bright red clown shoes? As strange as this figure is, it's definitely less common than the normal total package. There's also a version of the shirtless Luger with red boots too. So, if you're a Lex Luger aficionado, look out for that. Ooh yeah! Macho Man Randy Savage, representing the Wolfpack. This figure is just too sweet to be sour. He comes with a vest, a very unique curved steel chair, and even has a removable weight belt with fringe on it. It's tough to see, but Toybiz included a slight airbrushing effect to his skin to enhance muscle detail. This is another figure I personally have carded in my collection, and it's probably the best Randy Savage Toybiz made. Well, unless you prefer in white. Yes, there is a variant of Randy Savage decked out in white. This is yet another one that is much harder to come by nowadays, though there is an alternative way to get him that we'll talk about later in the video. In the meantime, check out this cool Ringside Collectibles Mattel figure. It has a Madness t-shirt this time around, and it even includes a very similar weight belt. The parallels show how far ahead of their time these figures actually were. Thus far, we've seen a lot of NWO, but what about a pure WCW guy? Enter Bill Goldberg. This isn't the very first Goldberg figure, that honor goes to OSFTM's Gilberg-like depiction of the guy, but it is the first in the Toybiz line. He has chest hair detail, jackhammer action, and includes the WCW heavyweight title along with a masked wrestler, quote unquote, that looks suspiciously like Rey Mysterio. Now, what kind of variant could Goldberg have? Several actually. The most noteworthy was the masked wrestler color variation. The standard figure you see everywhere, and I mean everywhere, had the red masked wrestler. But there also exists a blue one with white boots that is uncommon. This bonus figure had no real articulation to speak of, though he was far more bendy than the standard figures. He was perfect for destroying with a plentiful supply of jackhammers and spears. Here's another variation seen with Goldberg, the title belt. The original release was more basic and boxy, whereas the later release had a nicer curved title with more detail. There also exists yet another different version of Goldberg from around this time, though it's not a true variation and rather a separate release. KB Toys offer this figure exclusively at their stores, and from my recollection, it stayed there for a long time. If you ever wanted a Goldberg figure with space weights and his classic ripped shirt that says KB Toys exclusive written on it, this is the figure for you. Do any of these figures not have any variants? Well, yes, maybe, sort of. Here is the Giant, the lone figure in this entire set that doesn't have any major known variants. By the time this figure saw widespread release, Paul Wight, aka the Giant, aka the Big Show, was already making his debut in WWF at St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1999. That didn't stop the release of the Giant, and what a big release it is. This figure is massive. He has the ability to close his hand into a chokeslam hold via articulation on his thumb. And the accessory? Another masked jobber to toss around. This masked wrestler, though, is actually officially recognized as Rey Mysterio Jr. Like the one that came with Goldberg, articulation is limited, though this one has a neck that actually elongates like a giraffe, so the Giant can grab on and chokeslam him down. Impractical for an actual Rey Mysterio figure, but it works great for play. It's too bad the only proper Rey Mysterio figure Toybiz made was during his No Limit Soldiers Unmasked phase. Diamond Dallas Page follows Lex Luger's footsteps in wearing street gear, but unlike Lex, DDP spent what felt like an eternity actually wrestling in this attire. It became iconic to his up-and-coming run before he broke out into the main event scene. DDP has his classic diamond cutter shirt, a vest, and just because there was apparently an NWO quota on these figures, an NWO breakaway barricade. Squeezing his legs together unleashed the perfect diamond cutter finishing move, but it was one of what would go down to be several Toybiz WCW figures that were hindered by action features. Still, a solid figure depicting DDP's rise to prominence right before the dying days of WCW. And yes, there is a variant. A few minor variants involving thickness of his beard aside, there's also a variant without the shirt wearing black tights instead of jeans. This one is a bit more common than some of the other variants. There is one last figure to cover in the main line of Smash and Slam, and it's one of the faces of the wrestling industry, Hulk Hogan. Actually, it's Hollywood Hulk Hogan. There have been several Hollywood Hogan figures made by OSFTM before, but none of them really touch this figure. Just look at it. Look at the detail, the cool cut-off NWO shirt, the weight belt accessory, the spray paint, the steel steps. It was everything we were clamoring for out of a Hollywood Hogan figure. The main downside would be the molded sunglasses and bandana, but Toybiz remedied the sunglass issue with the variant figure. This figure depicts the brief time Hogan spent in the Wolfpac. The tank top is painted on, and he has the aforementioned new head mold with the more accurate bandana, and perhaps the best part, the Starrcade 1997 film strip tights. We'll have a closer look at that next. But before that, there's another Hogan version worth mentioning. Hollywood Hogan post-vacation tan variant. This one is very uncommon compared to the others, though it's nice to finally see a really tan Hogan figure since so few exist. Shortly after Smash and Slam launched, a one-off series of 2-packs including many of the same or similar figures were also released. These are themed pay-per-view sets tied with Smash and Slam that also included some very metallic stands. First up is from Starrcade 97, which includes the white version of Sting along with the variant version of Hollywood Hogan, this time with the white NWO logo. Here you can see the incredible detail that went into his tights. airbrush effect and all. He even has a small Hogan head on the side of his boot. Another 2-pack from this set is the neck-breaking battle between the Giant and Kevin Nash from Sold Out 1998. Here's the missing variant of the Giant. He is wearing a neck brace from the botched jackknife Nash gave him at this event. Nash has the airbrushed Nash singlet, which is still a bit different from the Smash and Slam variant. The third 2-pack is perhaps the most intriguing as it features the only woman Toybiz made in the line. It's the Randy Savage Miss Elizabeth 2-pack. Macho Man is the same as the variant, though Liz was produced once and never again, making it a complete exclusive to this set. She has a fox leather outfit with actual material fishnets. There are a few other loose ends to mention pertaining to this iconic series of figures. Small blister packs were released of a few characters, notably Sting sans the bat, and shirtless DDP sans, well, anything. There was also some oddball things like steel slammers, which take the exact mold styling seen in Smash and Slam and turns them into solid steel. Several rings exist from this time, some with no figures, some with figures, but the one that stands out the most includes a special Mean Gene Okerlund interview figure. It barely has any articulation, but it has a fantastic likeness to one of wrestling's most memorable backstage talents. He would go on to be released with a different outfit in a 3-pack elsewhere. Turning the ring box over reveals some early versions of Smash and Slam wrestlers. Here we see the well-known prototype Wolfpack Sting. Hogan's lightning bolt attire looks different with tiny lettering on the side. DDP's vest is pure black, and Savage has a yellow chair. But that's not all. Here are some other prototype images. You can see Hogan's lettering lacked the border around the NWO logo, and that he had some sort of writing on his knee pads. Rey Mysterio actually had some deco on him. On the final release with the Giant, he just had a plain black attire with plain white boots. And there's Sting, with his different head and logo and what looks to be a different material jacket. But there's one more worth noting, and this one must have changed late. It's Goldberg with, is that Stardust? Man, these figures were really ahead of their time. It's a totally new mold from the masked superstar he wound up coming with. Interestingly, when you look at the back of the box of any other figures in the set, Goldberg is never depicted. This image didn't make many rounds for that reason.
Here we go!
Smash and Slam was such a revolutionary set at the time. As hot as Austin, Rock, DX, and Undertaker were, having good figures of WCW's top talent was just as important during the Monday Night War. It gave us an opportunity to have an invasion worth having. Toybiz, however, failed to really keep the momentum going with future sets. Smash and Crunch and Power Slam would have some gems for sure, but never again did we see the amount of crazy variants and must-have wrestlers of the era. Toybiz would go off the deep end with crippling action features, especially with gimmicks, going as far as to make literal hitman Bret Hart and circus act Chris Jericho. Why? Because he is the Lionheart, and his finisher is the Lion Tamer, so they made him into an actual Lion Tamer. They'd also go on to make the comic book hero Slam Force series, where Kevin Nash included a powerbomb cannon and jackknife missile. Sting also came with Stinger missiles, because he's Sting. Regardless of how things turned out with the WCW Toybiz line, they could have not possibly started out with a bigger bang than they did. Toybiz essentially made elite-style action figures before the concept came into vogue, and they pulled it off extremely well. If you missed out on the Monday Night Figure War, you missed out period, because Smash and Slam brought the big guns that to this day stand the test of time.